Good morning. My name is Sophie Young. I'm the TCC Program Manager at the Strategic Growth Council, the counterpart to Brian. And we're here with our team today from SGC and also the Department of Conservation. And we are really thrilled for this opportunity to share the Round 4 Transformative Climate Community Guidelines and Application with the California tribal community. We've been really inspired by how impactful the program has been in supporting climate and social resilience in the 26 communities we've invested in so far. And last year's climate budget will fund us for another 3 rounds over the next 3 years, enabling us to fund at least 20 more communities across California. And we're especially excited in this round to expand eligibility to tribal territories and California Native American tribes. We wanted to note that, this is a place-based program, and we know that California Native people are native to every community in the state. And so we'd like to make this program accessible to those people. We've had a couple tribal partners on previous grant applications, and we are working across our agencies, Office of Planning and Research and the Strategic Growth Council to improve tribal access to our program. We've updated these Round 4 guidelines based on learnings from our sister program at SGC, the Tribal Government Challenge, that also funded a tribal gap analysis. And we'll be taking learnings from that program and also from our other sister program, the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities program that also funded a tribal housing project recently, and also other efforts at our agency. Last year, we consulted with other state agencies that are a little bit ahead of us on this and other nonprofits to learn from their efforts to date. And we also spoke with some of you on the parts of the program that are relevant. And we heard that many project components we fund are desired: solar, electric vehicles, parks, indoor air quality, and workforce training. And we know that there may be some program aspects that aren't quite there yet. And we would like to hear more on the types of projects that you are looking for to build resilience. So today you'll hear from our technical assistance providers who will provide one-on-one technical assistance to tribes and tribal serving entities for both implementation or planning grants, or alternatively for preparing for the future rounds of the program following this one. So I'd like to thank all of them and all of our state and tribal partners in helping to expand these opportunities, and also to our team for their thoughtful work today. And also thank you to the grantees from Oakland and Fresno for sharing their experiences with everyone today. We look forward to meeting you and to having our conversations today online, and hope to continue them in person soon. So thank you. I'll pass it back to our team.
Great. Thank you, Sophie. So we'll just start with a couple of housekeeping items. Just as Brian noted, this session will be recorded and will be posted to the TCC website. We're also letting folks know if there are tech issues, to please send a message in the chat to our DOC colleague, Nicole Cartwright, who's on the chat. And then also encouraging you all to feel free to ask questions, drop them in the chat during the presentation at any time. We will be answering these questions during the session. Also, if your question does not get answered, we will follow up with an email to answer your questions after the presentation. All right, so those are the housekeeping items. So the agenda really will discuss, again, the TCC program overview, goals and principles, as well as important upcoming deadlines for the application process. The TA provider, as Sophie mentioned, is on this call and will present an overview of application TA provided for round 4. And then lastly, we will have the opportunity to hear directly from past grantees during this presentation, who can share some of their experiences, as well as answer any questions that you may have. So before we begin going into the nitty-gritty of the work, we'll begin with a brief background and overview of the TCC program and goals. So the California Strategic Growth Council is a cabinet-level committee tasked with coordinating state agency activities aimed at supporting the planning and development of sustainable communities. The mission of the council is to coordinate and work collaboratively with public agencies, communities, and stakeholders to achieve sustainability, equity, economic prosperity, and quality of life for all Californians. Furthermore, the California Strategic Growth Council is committed to achieving racial equity in our work, in which all people of California can live in healthy, thriving, and resilient communities regardless of race. So the TCC program was created through a little bit of background. TCC program was created through legislation to fund community-led climate resilient development and infrastructure plans that provide multiple benefits. The program vision for transformation is centered on a place-based approach with a focus on funding neighborhood plans in the most disadvantaged communities in the state. Strategic Growth Council also recognizes that the term disadvantaged often overlooks the many assets and existing efforts in communities. And we'll be using the term from the California Environmental Protection Agency that defines disadvantaged communities as census tracts with high pollution and socioeconomic burdens. So SGC administers the Transformative Climate Communities Program in partnership with the California Department of Conservation. TCC funds community-driven proposals and is structured to provide existing residents and stakeholders with the tools and resources to drive change. The program makes significant investments to support the deployment of multiple integrated climate strategies and projects carried out through strong partnerships at the local level and within the state. To date, the program has invested over $230 million in 26 communities, with implementation grants ranging between 10 and 66.5 million, and then planning grants ranging between $100,000 and $200,000 each. So yeah, so here are the types of implementation grants. So SGC administers implementation and planning grants. Implementation grants for round 4 include 3 awards for $35 million each. Again, funding project proposals that include multiple coordinated projects aimed at reducing greenhouse gas emissions and achieving community benefits. And then typically these are 5-year grants with project completion periods, followed by 1 year of performance and outcome evaluation. And then planning grants for round 4, there are 4 awards at $300,000 each. And then again, these are supporting planning activities in disadvantaged communities. And then the hope is to prepare communities for future TCC grants or other resilience implementation funding. And then these typically are 2-year grant terms with the option to extend on a case-by-case basis. The next slide we'll show is a map of the implementation grants. So TCC has awarded 8 implementation grants across the state since 2018, again with grants ranging between $10 and $66.5 million. And the total number of projects within these awarded sites ranging from 10 to 20 projects. Noting that all of the round 3 implementation grantees were former planning grantees. On the right, we have some images of the work that has been done to date. The next image we'll show is a map of planning grants. So TCC has also awarded 26 planning grants up to date in both rural and urban areas for around $100,000 to $200,000 each. And then on the right, we have an image from the participatory budgeting process in Watts for the Watts Rising group, round 1 implementation grantee, showing a powerful planning process that resulted in community prioritized projects. We encourage you all to visit the TCC website, which has more resources and full summaries of all previous implementation and planning grantees with links to their project websites. So now that we have gone over a brief background, I will hand the presentation over to Brian from the Department of Conservation. Brian?
Thank you. Glad to be here again today. You're going to hear a lot of detailed information. TCC is a complicated program. It's got a lot of components and a lot of requirements. The application can be daunting, and we're going to do our best to orient you to those requirements and resources. But before we do that, we do want to take a step back and talk about some of the core principles of the program and the way that the program functions, especially as it may relate to tribal communities. We really try to ground our program in these principles. And so even where you're going to see as you go through it, I think as Sophie mentioned, some requirements or specific language that you may have questions about. But please, if you're not sure, feel free to reach out to us and we can work on that, work through that. So what is it about? This is it, really. The core of the program is that TCC is about people, projects, and place. We're asking you to come together and share with us your model for what you need in your community. So the strategies, the thresholds, the requirements that follow from that are really grounded in this principle. We do want to know your community vision. Slide. So the first element of that is community. We ask all applicants to form a partnership with residents, leaders, and organizations to develop their community vision. That vision informs the rest of the program, how projects are selected, and how the work is conducted through the life of the grant. This gets formalized in the program through the collaborative stakeholder structure, which is really meant to ensure partnership and deep integration of the program with all elements of the community. But we don't expect every community to organize itself in a specific way. Especially, I think, with some of our tribal communities, especially federally recognized tribes or tribes, that have multiple government entities and departments. I think we have existing grantees that are representing multiple departments and community organizations. So we don't want to suggest that there's any particular way this should look. We just want to see that the different aspects of the community and how they're going to relate to the projects are represented. Once you have that community vision, participants select projects that build resilience and improve livelihoods in ways that are meaningful to the people in those communities. Every grant includes multiple projects within the project area, which work with each other to implement that community vision. So here we have a picture of a neighborhood with multiple types of projects, each of which is sort of in conversation with each other and meant to serve each other. There's a wide range of project types and strategies in the program, and each has their own requirements. So of our 11 strategies, they all have particular details about the types of projects and types of work that they include, but they're also flexible. So you have room to pick projects and shape those projects to meet your community vision. So if you have a strategy, in mind and a vision, program staff and our TA partners are here to work with you to try to make that work within the program. We wanted to give a couple examples of what this might look like based off of feedback we've received. So for example, you may look at a community microgrid project to build sort of power and energy resilience within your community. You might connect that to a home or community solar photovoltaic program, putting solar panels and energy generation in the community. In Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities program includes active transit access and transit development to connect either within or within the community and to connect the community to external resources and locations. Health and well-being, urban greening, community forestry are all intrinsic to the program and eligible project types. And so as you go through the application, you'll see that each of these projects have their own requirements. And then that's where you can work with us and the TA providers to develop projects that are salient to you. We also have an access to basic infrastructure requirement, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, but we wanted to note that there is some funding to integrate basic infrastructure into the program. So applicants must have a plan, proposed plans to have water supply and wastewater services, access to affordable clean transit, connectivity. We provide funding for the water requirements up to 10% of the grant total. And some of the funded project types include connectivity and transit options. So there are things we can do. There are also things we can't do. So if there's work that needs to happen in the neighborhood or in your community, we hope that there's additional leverage options or a planning grant could help you find those resources as well. Finally, the program has 6 transformative elements that must be included in each proposal to further the transformative potential of the investments and ensure that meaningful benefits are being directed to the existing residents and the stakeholders in your community. The 3 we have here are heavily supported by the program in terms of funding and focus, and are meant to ensure that there's community participation in every aspect of the program. So every implementation grant requires a community engagement program, workforce development, and displacement avoidance. And again, what these mean in your community, what these mean for your project, is going to depend on what they mean for your community. We don't really intend to prescribe one mode of what we're calling displacement avoidance. We want to know that how our program can integrate the projects that are happening with ensuring that the needs of the existing community are being met. The next three transformative elements are less directly connected in terms of funding to the overall budget and the work plan, but are all still deeply interwoven into the grant. So first, climate adaptation and resilience is essential to all of the work. As part of your application, you'll demonstrate how climate adaptation and resilience planning are being integrated to every aspect of the project. So all projects should have that benefit, but we can't provide funding for it because it's built into the nature of the program. Secondly, we have data collection and indicator tracking. There's funding set aside for this to partner with organizations who can help you with quantification of greenhouse gases, greenhouse gas reduction, and other benefits of the program, and help provide feedback to us on how we can make sure that the program better serves communities in the future. Finally, we do have a leverage funding requirement, which is 50% of the total grant award. But our leverage funding requirements are unusually flexible. I'll talk more about that in just a second. On the next slide. So I just want to note that leverage, I think, can turn people off. We don't mean specifically, say, for example, private development leverage or direct funding that's being applied to the projects. These can be other grants, federal funding. They can also be in-kind contributions. So if you have community members or tribal partners who are participating in the program, or you have an idea for how you can leverage your own community or the benefits you already offer, and integrate those into the program, we can work with you to figure out how that can meet the leverage requirement. But there's still limitations to that. So we just want to note that committed leverage, or leverage must be committed to the area and the timeline of the project. So it can't be an ongoing project that exists before TCC was started, or it's outside our specific project area. The leverage needs to be integrated into the projects and strategies, so it should respond directly to that, and it should respond directly to that community vision, right? So I think what we just really want to articulate is that leverage is meant to be integrated into the program, and that when you're committing leverage, you're showing that this is funding that's being directed as an investment into your community, but in cooperation with the rest of the TCC projects. So pre-existing, this is where it gets tricky, and we will work with you on this if you have questions, but pre-existing standalone investments, so that is they're not part of a TCC project, and you're already funding them, don't count toward the 50%. But if you have existing funding or existing opportunities, and you can show that you're trying to take advantage of TCC and you're using the funding you have and integrating those into your projects, that is on the table. Finally, we just wanted to note a little bit more about the planning grant projects and activities. Most of the details I just shared are specific to the implementation grants, but the principles all apply as well to the planning grant. So with the planning grants, we're still looking for community stakeholders and the community vision. We still want to provide funding for multiple projects and to tie those projects to transformative elements. But the requirements are a lot less top heavy, I guess. So the application is simpler, and there's more funding for capacity building, project development, organization. This could include grant writing. So for example, if you didn't meet the basic infrastructure requirement now, but you wanted to apply for a planning grant and work within your community, one of your activities could be grant writing to develop a proposal to do a water infrastructure project or transit infrastructure project that might connect to the TCC project you're hoping to do in the future, or other resilient investments. So it's pretty flexible. And again, it's about community vision. We do have just a couple of requirements that there are multiple types of projects and that those TCC transformative elements are a part of your project. Taken together, we think what we're offering and what we've seen come out of our existing projects are transformative, and that every community really does have its own idea of what it wants to look like in the future. So the program is asking for common vision, integrated projects, lasting partnerships, with the hope of producing real impact. This is a picture from my hometown, one person's vision of what a sort of future sustainable city might look like, but yours will look different. And so we're excited to see what your vision is. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Brian. So we wanted to take a second here to introduce the Better Neighborhoods, Same Neighborhoods Coalition in East Oakland. So they're the round 3 implementation grantee. So I can't see who's on, I can't see my screen right now, but wondering if Michael is on the call, and I'll toss it over to Michael.
All right, thank you, Jerry. I am on, and I'm very happy to be here. I spent some time up with the Karuk tribe and Yurok tribe up in Northern California before getting back down here to Oakland and taking the position of TCC program manager for the city of Oakland. I took that position in June, and I came in to a already designed, planned out, and funded project. This TCC project, we're getting $28.2 million with this project, where we have 5 different projects, building, housing, and transportation. We're doing a bike program and after school enrichment program. We're doing some community greening, planting 2,000 trees in deep East Oakland. And we're building a trail. Actually, we're not building a trail. We're in partnership with a project that is building a trail from deep East Oakland out to the coast, MLK shoreline. And we're doing an aquaponics farm in one of the areas in deep East Oakland that has no access to produce or anything like that. And then our 3 transformative plans are community engagement, displacement avoidance, and workforce and economic opportunities development. And so with all of that, there's a lot to manage, and I definitely recognize the difference between a project happening in deep East Oakland, as well as when you're thinking of projects in tribal communities. The landscape geography is different, but I think we see a lot of the same issues. And one of the main issues, I think, is climate justice. Obviously, like framing these projects through climate justice is pretty amazing that we get to do within the transformative climate communities. One of the things that we see as, I'll share a little bit about some of the challenges that we see and some of the things that are helpful to keep in mind for an application and with implementation in mind. And that would be lead grantee operations, and having, for us, it's the city of Oakland, and by the time the project rolls out, it may have been missed by the community about how this whole project came together. So making sure to tie in the history of development of the applications and of the partnerships that are going into the project, access to lead grantee resources, and relationship building is huge. And developing trust, I think, for us, running the grant through the city is huge. Is showing up into spaces that the community is at, where the community really is able to give feedback and input. Also, community-driven approaches. I think that kind of goes in line with what I was just talking about, developing trust. And examples from Oakland is the way that this project was thought about was through the East Oakland Neighborhood Initiative, which is a collective of community-based organizations that have roots within the community of Deep East Oakland. And kind of continuing those relationships beyond planning. There was a concern that we would be co-opting that work. And so we've done work to ensure including the planning portion, connecting the planning portion with the implementation portion, just sharing information, including them in decision making. And just really making sure that the project is a part of community partner organizations, and involvement of residents. That's definitely something that comes up. We have a very, very passionate and committed community stakeholder committee, and that took time to develop. And I would say that would be a really, really great place to prioritize is that community stakeholder structure, recruitment, and placement, and it's specifically for the TCC project, and that's the advantage of building out that stakeholder committee. Is it's totally dedicated to the project. You get all kinds of various perspectives on the work. And that kind of lends into a lot of the other things that we're trying to do with the project, which is, where we need to frame our work with our community engagement partners through a climate justice narrative, and having community engagement partners that really, really understand each project, really understand the importance of the different strategies that you're using, being in line with those strategies and being able to represent the project out in the community in different spaces. So I see that the development of our project was kind of front end. So the city understood everything, and we were coming out into the community explaining how everything was supposed to be working. And that sort of, it just doesn't land the same as a resident or a community-based organization leader housing and pushing those narratives forward. So that's definitely one of the things that is a huge piece of the experience that I've had developing ways to share information, understand the project, and onboard staff. It's a constant onboarding process. So, I think it started in large part with me, because I was coming in about 6 months after the awarding of the grant, and I had to come up to speed. And now we're continually hiring, and a staff drops off and then comes on, and every time it's like a reintroduction of the project, and the project is huge. So definitely having an onboarding structure, most likely connected to the community stakeholder structure as well, because you're going to have to onboard those members and get all the information downloaded on, we have 21 members of our committee, so that's a lot of onboarding. So that's something that is a really good place to focus on as well. And reporting and invoicing and indicator tracking. So my experience has been, by having these two things separate, it definitely leads into some separation of and the perspective that the indicator tracking is like extra work because they're an outside partner, but really finding ways to integrate the indicator tracking and the reporting and invoicing to the SGC. just really thinking on the front end on proposals and plans about how you can make that process integrated, and having the partners prioritize that work, and having that process be empowering, integrated into the requirements of the grant, versus seeing it as just an entity to meet requirements, which can be seen as providing extra work for various staff members of the collaborative and partnership that you're a part of. So I definitely have a lot more, but definitely want to just kick it back. If anybody has any questions, then feel free to ask. Other than that, I'll pass it back on over to Jerry.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Appreciate that insight. Also, yeah, if folks have questions, more detailed questions, Michael will be available in the breakout rooms after the session. So yeah, if you have those specific for Michael and Courtney, who will be presenting shortly, we'll be able to ask those. So thanks. So moving on, we'll pass it over to Jennifer Kim, who is our TCC staff, to go over application overview and timelines. Jennifer?
Thanks, Jay. Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer, and next we'll take a look at the application overview and timeline. In this section, we will describe eligibility requirements for applicants and project or planning areas, walk through the key application components and requirements, and provide an overview of the application timeline, as well as technical assistance opportunities. So who is eligible to apply? Applications must include a minimum of 2 co-applicants, including a public agency, which includes tribal governments, departments, and duly constituted tribal entities, such as tribally designated housing authorities or utility districts. California Native American tribes under the California Native American Heritage Commission are eligible, and non-recognized tribes can apply as tribally chartered or 501c3 organizations. As described before by Brian, a core component of the program is the collaborative stakeholder structure. So a range of entities are eligible, but no single entity on their own will be competitive. And eligible applicants include, but are not limited to the ones on this slide. So if you don't see it here, it doesn't mean you aren't eligible. And the lead applicant must be one that demonstrates sufficient financial and administrative capacity to administer the grant. As discussed before, TCC is a place-based program with investments concentrated in a single neighborhood. So applicants must define a project area that is contiguous and covers less than 5 square miles for implementation grants. Here are the requirements for the areas that are located in incorporated communities or federally recognized tribal territories. So at least 51% of the area must be within census tracts amongst the top 25% disadvantaged per Cal EPA's EnviroScreen 3.0 or 4.0. Or conversely, it must be located within federally recognized tribal boundaries, and this is just for the project area. And the remaining 49% of the or less of the project area must meet those same requirements or be a low-income community defined by Assembly Bill 1550. In this new round, disadvantaged unincorporated communities are now also eligible for TCC grants. The eligibility criteria for unincorporated communities differ slightly from the criteria for tribal and incorporated on the previous slide. Mostly the methods for determining whether a community is disadvantaged differs. And in order to address the lack of data representation in these communities, we're accepting 4 methods to determine eligibility in unincorporated areas. And they only need to meet one of these 4 criteria, which is the first is being located within the top 25% of disadvantaged census tracts per Cal EnviroScreen again, and be designated as a disadvantaged unincorporated community by the local agency formation commission. Second, the project or planning area is an eligible location per our Tcc Mapping Tool, which we'll talk about a little bit more. And third, the project area is within the planning area of a previous TCC planning grant. And finally, grantees can self-identify as a disadvantaged unincorporated community and justify that designation with local data that identifies things like population characteristics and density at a neighborhood level. We have updated the Tcc Mapping Tool to combine the data layers that you see here with program requirements to help communities determine their eligibility. We have a story map and 13-minute video tutorial posted on our website, each of which walk through how to use the tool. We will also have a breakout that will kind of go over the mapping tool. The technical assistance providers will also work with grantees to identify and help justify eligible areas. And again, we want to highlight that all federally recognized tribal territories are eligible, and all disadvantaged unincorporated communities may be eligible if they're just able to justify their designation with the neighborhood level assessment of population characteristics, environmental burden, building density, and such. Applicants will use our templates to submit a work plan, budget, and set of narrative responses for each project and plan. The partner organization responsible for leading each project or plan can take the lead on completing that portion of the application. Applicants will also submit readiness documentation and letters of support as required and based on the project type. And planning grant applications are much less intensive and includes a single budget, work plan, and set of narrative questions. TCC program staff will first evaluate implementation grant proposals using the application's program thresholds. These are based on eligibility and TCC program requirements. For example, a partnership agreement is required for the collaborative stakeholder structure. And applicants need to select at least 3 strategies and propose at minimum 3 projects. And the projects must be both what we call quantifiable and ready for implementation, as well as comprise of at least 50% of the total requested grant funds. And for TCC, quantifiable means that the California Air Resources Board has a methodology for quantifying greenhouse gas emissions for the type of activity, and ready means that the project meets requirements for CEQA, site control, and permitting. And next, I'll hand it off to Bo to cover some other important application information.
Thanks, Jennifer, and hi, everyone. So I'm going to be reviewing some of TCC policy priorities in round 4 that impact eligibility and evaluation. Some of them are required and some offer incentive points. As mentioned earlier, applicants must demonstrate that residents in the proposed TCC project area have existing access or develop plans for basic water supply and wastewater services, as well as transit connectivity to regional service hubs and major job centers through affordable, clean transportation projects. TA providers will support applicants in meeting these requirements through their proposed projects. Also, applicants must demonstrate that TCC proposals are consistent with all relevant land use plans, including climate change, climate action plans, zoning, building density requirements, design guidelines, and applicable goals, policies, and programs. This can be demonstrated by by the submittal of a letter from the local jurisdiction's planning department or public works department describing the proposed TCC project's consistency with all relevant plans. Applicants with cities with planned high-speed rail stations along the initial Silicon Valley to Central Valley line must include in the TCC project area multimodal connectivity to the high-speed rail station area. And if there are any proposed affordable and mixed-income housing, its connectivity and accessibility to the high-speed rail station area. There are 2 additional policy incentives for pro-housing and air pollution reduction and mitigation, which can earn applicants an additional 5 points each. TCC will provide incentives to applicants that have implemented or proposed actions to reduce localized point sources of pollution in their TCC project areas and jurisdictions. TCC is required by legislation to provide incentive points to applicants in jurisdictions that receive the Department of Housing and Community Development's pro-housing designation, which incentivizes policies that create sustainable housing and reduce vehicle miles traveled. Any jurisdiction can earn these points. The pro-housing policy incentive will not apply to applications located in federally recognized tribal boundaries, and the TCC program will provide maximum points in this category for those applications. Additionally, there are example policies for both incentives listed in the guidelines appendices, which can earn applicants these points. With respect to the scoring criteria, each application will be evaluated based on its vision and objectives, demonstrated capacity to implement the proposal, and transformative elements. Planning grants will also be evaluated on the project's proposed and the pro-housing policy incentive. The application thresholds and full scoring criteria are listed in the Round 4 guidelines. Here's a couple of examples of what the point systems look like. And a quick overview of the application timeline. Free technical assistance is provided to support applicants throughout the application process. All implementation grant applicants are required to receive free third-party technical assistance to ensure that questions are answered consistently, feedback is given equitably, and GHG estimates are completed uniformly. Tribal communities are also eligible for application technical assistance for planning grants. To be connected to the technical assistance providers, please fill out a simple form that is available on our website. It will be emailed to all registrants after this meeting and will be put in the chat. There is no deadline for tribal communities and unincorporated communities to request TA for either type of grant, but we encourage you to submit the survey as soon as possible so that you have sufficient time to work with the TA providers. Filling out the survey is not a firm commitment to applying. It will just start the process of scheduling an intake call to help you decide whether this program is a good fit for you. All implementation grant applicants will submit a pre-proposal by April 22nd to help the applicant. TA providers and SGC assess whether applicants are on track to meet the threshold requirements by the application deadline and to identify areas where additional support is needed. The pre-proposal will not influence application evaluation. For those who choose not to receive planning grant technical assistance, a simple planning grant interest survey is due May 16th. The final application submission deadline is July 1st, and Round 4 TCC awards will be adopted by the Council on October of 2022.
Great, thank you, Bo. So we'll just transition right on over to our application technical assistance providers who are also on the call. So, and they can introduce themselves. So tossing it over to you all.
Hello, great. And actually, just as a point of clarification, SGC, do you have the slides that you're going to go through that we sent? Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you, everyone. My name is Kayla McDonald Encina. I'm a project manager with CivicWell. And CivicWell, we'll get into some of the other technical assistance providers in just a little bit, but CivicWell has been part of the technical assistance team for the last cycle since the beginning of the program. So we're really hoping to share a lot of our experience and expertise in this program. And I really look forward to meeting and working with some of the people who've joined in on this workshop today. So first, I did want to just give a quick overview, and some of these things have been said before about technical assistance. As was just previously mentioned, for implementation grants, technical assistance is required. And you will work with either myself or another of the technical assistance providers. We're the SGC sponsored providers for both planning and implementation grants for this program. And just a little bit of information you could see on this slide here. Some of the assistance we provide includes assessment of project readiness, review of your application responses, coordinating different components of the application, financial analysis and budget development, and support for project integration. Again, the survey, we are asking for anyone who can to please submit applications or the survey, interest survey by March 25th. We will receive responses after the fact, but if there's any way that you can submit it by that deadline, that will give us just as much time as we have to dedicate as much support as we can for your proposal. And so also new this year, some TCC planning grant applicants will also be eligible for SGC sponsored technical assistance support. And that does include tribal communities. And you will receive similar assistance as with the implementation grants. And this is the whole panel of our technical assistance providers. Again, I'm one a part of the CivicWell team who you may be working with if you do submit a survey for technical assistance. Our technical assistance program is led by SGC and Solano Advisors, ARUP, our organization, and others below who you may also get to speak with if you do submit a survey. I actually do have two members of the National Indian Justice Center that I do want to introduce just briefly, if you don't mind coming on screen, just so we get to see your faces. I have Kelly and Christy. Kelly, if you want to do that first.
Kayla, can I interrupt for just one
Sure.
quick second? I just wanted to give Shasta a minute. If we can be brief, Shasta has asked to speak. She needs to jump off at 11. So
Absolutely.
Shasta, you have the floor. Shasta, if you're still here.
Thank you. I am. I appreciate that. Just for brief context, I'm Shasta Gaughan. I'm the Environmental Director and the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer for the Paula Band of Mission Indians. I'm also the chair of the board for the National Association of Tribal Historic Preservation Officers, and I run the California TIPO monthly call where the TIPOs get together to talk about issues of concern. And I was a consultant on the SGC tribal gaps analysis, and so was very heavily involved in that as well. And I appreciate the opportunity that SGC is bringing to us, but I want to touch on what some of my colleagues have said, Sean, for example, and Colleen. And it seems to me that SGC has not taken the opportunity to consult with tribes on what this program should include to make it specific and helpful for tribal communities. I have learned in the 17 years that I have worked for Paula, and I'm not a tribal citizen, so I'm lucky to have their trust to do this work for them as a descendant of colonizers. But I have learned that you have to have money to get money. And this is an incredibly heavy lift that you are expecting from tribes. And on a staff level, I'm not really going to, put any onus on you for that. But it is deeply concerning to me that this is something that it seems like most tribes aren't going to have the capacity to even begin thinking about applying for, much less be able to have the capacity to implement if and when they were to be successful. And so I think that a lot more work needs to be done for equity and inclusion of tribes as consulting partners on how to make this work. And the fact that Colleen, I think it was Colleen or it was somebody else who asked the question about whether tribes would have to waive their sovereignty. Oh, that was Catherine who said that. This has been an ongoing problem with the state. Tribes are nations. We are on a higher level than the state. And the fact that we are still not getting an answer from legal counsel from the state of California on those waivers of tribal sovereignty is unconscionable. And having said that, it's 11 and I have to go. So I'm mic dropping. Thank you for your work. Hopefully my folks who are on the call, my colleagues will follow up. And peace out. Bye.
Thank you.
Can I jump in? This is Josh Meyer, part of the EA team, CivicWell. And I just want to say I appreciate the comments, and I'll turn it back over to Kayla. We're all working together as part of the technical assistance team. That is one of the goals of technical assistance. We realize it's a heavy lift, but we just want to let you know we're here to help and try to navigate and get you, either through planning grants or implementation grants to the finish line. So we're here to help as much as possible. Okay, I'll turn it back over to Kayla. Okay.
And just to reset a little bit, I just want to note that that's a really fair critique. Like, I don't want to pretend that it's not, right? I'd love to talk a little bit more about what we think is in there now once we get to the QA session. I think there may be some things we can do, but there's a lot that we haven't done, and that's true. So there are more rounds, and we are hoping to do more and do better. And I look forward to getting an opportunity to consult a little bit more as well.
Agree. And I did want to put one other point on the survey, which is a simple survey due March 25th. Again, anytime thereafter, if anyone wants to submit an inquiry, there's no obligation again to apply for a planning or implementation grant by filling out that survey. And even if it's a small step in getting answers and getting ready for a future round by us providing some support, even again, if it doesn't lead to a grant, that's our hopes for the survey too, but we do have more to work on. And we look forward to working with you on that. I do want to give it over to Christy and Kelly, if you don't mind just introducing yourself so people would see your faces just quickly.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to meet you all virtually. This is our first year with, or it's going to be our first year time to be part of the TCC round 4. And I wanted to acknowledge Shasta and what she said, and we're really looking forward to working with TCC and all the just SGC and the framework with working with tribal communities. And I think there's a lot of improvements that will be, throughout the next couple of years to add to the program. And we're very happy to be here. I'm Christy Garcia, and I'm the program manager for NIJC for the National Indian Justice Center. And I've been part of NIJC for over 10 years, assisting in project development, program management, providing training and technical assistance on numerous projects. And we look forward to working with you on this grant application process and providing any assistance and, speaking and also consulting, having that voice of tribal communities to be part of this process and really to make a change, like Shasta said, and really bring in at the table all your input and concerns and how can we make this better. So I'm just really happy that we're given the opportunity to be part of this, to be able to be a voice and help you and just assist you in this process. And we have also Kelly Myers, who is our executive director of NAJC. I believe she was having technical issues, but you might have to wait at the end if she jumps back on. But anyways, I just wanted to introduce myself and just really be a resource and be available for any questions throughout the process. Thank you.
Hi, Christy. Thank you for jumping in there. Sorry, everybody. This is Kelly Myers with the National Indian Justice Center. I got booted off my Zoom and it wouldn't let me back in, so I'm reaching out to you by phone. And just wanted to say I'm happy to see a lot of familiar names in the opening chat, and we're looking forward to working with everybody. I wasn't able to hear Christy's introduction because it took me a little bit of time to get back on, but just wanted to assure you I've been watching the chat and the questions that came up. This is the first time that tribes are really eligible for this program. So we're trying to work really closely with the folks here in the TA team and SGC to make sure that we can iron out any of the issues. So bear with us as we move through. There's still questions and procedures that are being ironed out. And I'll pass it on.
Thank you both. Can you go to the next slide, please? So there are just broadly 4 steps of what the technical assistance process looks like. Again, we've already said step 1, which is filling out a simple survey. Step 2, within about 3 days, the lead TA provider, Estelano advisors, will reach out to those that have filled out the survey and schedule a call to talk about the responses, applicant eligibility, project descriptions, and their general technical assistance needs. Step 3, the eligible applicants will be matched with the TA providers, including my team or others. We'll contact those applicants and schedule a kickoff meeting. We'll talk about a variety of things that were discussed in the previous slides. And lastly, develop a work plan. Both the technical assistance provider and the greenhouse gas technical assistance provider will schedule to conduct and create work plans that'll go through the application deadline of July 1st. Again, few more points on technical assistance services here. We're really I like to think at least that we like to be in the trenches with the applicants team. We really provide a lot of support with clarifying guidelines, aligning projects, helping with greenhouse gas quantification, budget, GIS mapping, partnership engagement, and reviewing all aspects of applications. The technical assistance work plan looks a little bit like this. The TA provider will give the applicant team a work plan template, and we're going to identify specific tasks, deadlines, and responsible parties. Then applicants will populate it, and we can provide a lot of support in that. And we'll create an individualized work plan for each applicant or those who are not applying, I should say as well. With the greenhouse gas provider, create another similar work plan. The TA provider will give the applicant team a greenhouse gas reduction intake form with inputs to fill out, and those look a little bit different based on the different quantifiable projects. The applicants will review it and fill it out. And I think in both cases, this is an iterative process. Some things might change, and we'll work together accordingly to make sure that you have all the information that you need in a timely manner to submit applications. There's also, just very lastly, regarding this technical assistance opportunity, we do have a local community-based organization technical assistance provider opportunity. So there is some limited funding to do this, and this really helps with having a local, trusted partner who can work more often, day in, day out, to help develop the proposal or to provide any other assistance as needed. So typically this person or entity would help with facilitation and community outreach and engagement, administrative coordination, developing and finding partnerships, and provide a lot of local and subject matter expertise that could complement the technical assistance providers' expertise, and also helping with identification of stakeholders to be involved in the development of the process and the proposal. So, and just as a clarification, we will work with those applicants throughout the process to identify this TA provider, this local TA provider. They must be a nonprofit, have project area expertise, also have expertise working with priority populations within the project area, and an interest in helping with the application development. If interested, the applicant team should recommend the community-based organization TA provider. We will also have conversations about that and see if that's of interest to the team. And we will bring that up probably as part of the work plan as well. And then again, the CBO TA provider can be funded, but it's subject to funding availability and SGC approval. Thank you.
Great, thank you all. So now we'll toss it over to Courtney Espinoza, who's here from our round one grantee, Transform Fresno, to give a little summary about Transform Fresno. So Courtney, over to you.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for having me. My name is Courtney Espinoza, and I'm the program manager for the City of Fresno's Transformative Climate Communities Grant, named Transform Fresno. So I have the opportunity to administer one of the most ambitious community development efforts the city of Fresno and its partners have ever undertaken. Our target area consists of 5 square miles centered around the future high-speed rail station in the southwest part of the city. Oh, you can go back to the old slide, sorry. This area is one of the highest concentrations of poverty in the state and has suffered decades of disinvestment due to our urban sprawl and ranks the top 10% of highest pollution burden areas according to Cal EnviroScreen. And although we're located in the fruit basket of the world, it has little to no access to healthy food within that community. Thankfully, we were in the first round of TCC grantees with $66.5 million in grant funding, coupled with $122 million in local leverage funding for a total of $188 million of investment to create change within this community. So prior to submitting the grant application and award, the city had to show successful community engagement, where the community would choose what type of projects and where they wanted to see those investments made. Through a historical, inclusive, community participatory budgeting process over a course of 4 months, Transform Fresno was created. Several community meetings were held where local organizations were encouraged to submit their ideas in an open forum to the community itself. We had a lot of working groups, focus groups, a project reveal day, and ultimately a vote by 165 community member steering committee, where the members must have worked, live, or own property in the project area and attend at least 3 TCC meetings to be an eligible voting member. After a significant amount of community engagement and input, the community steering committee nearly unanimously chose the suite of projects. Only one person registered a no vote. So you can go to the next slide, please. So this equates to 24 different projects with 11 different local partners, all centered around environmental and economic solutions. We are about halfway through the 5-year performance period, and all projects are moving forward on time and within budget, thankfully. Some of the quantifiable outcomes consist of a 56-unit 4-story housing complex located in Fresno's Chinatown. And this complex is a net zero complex, providing mixed use residential and commercial spaces adjacent to the new planned high-speed rail station. Over 1,300 trees will be planted in the project area. 250 resident homes will receive solar at no cost, and 5 housing authority complexes will also gain a new solar system to reduce energy costs for its tenants. We have constructed a 7.5-acre community garden with 90 individual garden plots for interested residents to grow their own produce, and 3 half-acre plots for used for larger permaculture training techniques and farm incubation. We will be planting a 1-acre community garden also this spring that will have a walkable orchard using the hugelculture techniques. 4 miles of trails will be installed connecting several Transform Fresno projects together for maximum use. 170 single-family homes will receive energy efficient modifications, helping to reduce their energy costs. EV cars, charging infrastructure, EV bikes, and buses will also be purchased and used throughout the project, as well as van pools to and from our larger employment facilities like Amazon and our Ulta warehouses. We're augmenting a current food to share program that will rehab and rescue food and redistribute. It's a redistribution site. Sorry, it's hard to say. That will divert approximately 1 million pounds of food that would have been wasted. A new 10-acre community park will be the first park located in this area and constructed within the last couple decades. It will be located adjacent to our new college campus that will encompass trees, walking trails, stormwater retention, and groundwater recharge capabilities. Nearly 3.5 miles of new bike lanes will be incorporated, providing safety for bicycle riders. As our workforce projects, a total of 406 residents will be trained in the areas of low emission or no emission truck driver training, welding, solar installation, and then basic construction skills. Finally, we will construct street improvements for approximately 2 miles throughout the project area with sidewalks, curb and gutters, tree canopies, and lighting. Next slide, please. So some of the key resources that I'd like to share with you, or key successes that I'd like to share with you as you prepare to apply for your round 4 TCC grant funding are community. So start your process with a full court press of community engagement for the community at all levels. I would suggest incorporating current stakeholder groups, new stakeholder groups, and the general public specifically. As I had said earlier, we were able to establish a 165 community steering committee and essentially gave everyone that wanted to participate a voice in this process. We had several community meetings in a short 4-month block and encouraged potential partner organizations to submit their project ideas within the parameters of the grant. So no project was too small to be considered. We also facilitated partnerships with people that had a project in mind but needed the support of an established organization in order to execute it. We did the whole science fair type setup with proposers putting together a project board for the public to view and ask questions, and set up a project presentation date so the larger group could hear their sales pitch, basically. Communication is also important. Maintaining several ways of communication with the public and potential partners is super important. We used a phone number, a direct line, and an email that went directly to city staff to ensure those lines of communications were open. We sent out emails, mailers, did door-to-door engagement throughout the entire process so we could keep all the community informed about the progress and what the next steps were. So I would suggest visiting established community events to get the word out about what you're trying to accomplish and how the community can get involved in that. Finally, leadership. We were fortunate enough to have a mayor, city council members, local leaders champion this work from the very beginning. That was one of our past mayors in that first picture of the slideshow at the very beginning of the workshop. That support has only grown as we've walked through the implementation for Transform Fresno. We decided to establish an outreach and oversight committee that serves as an advisory committee for all things Transform Fresno related. So this community is a must, and it's made up of community members that were involved in the very beginning and were an original voting member, actually. They also came from all walks of life within the community, to include advocate agencies, local pastors, business owners, longstanding community members, and respected residents of the project area. So no one was left out. And really, that's all that I have. I wanted to be super brief, but I will be around in the breakout sessions to answer any specific questions that you may have, or you can always email me at the contact information on the slide. Thank you.